Can you see the hills in the background? It's still kind of hazy, so I might have to redo this on another day. But why do they appear to be below the stop sign? I mean, aren't they like 3,000 feet high? Stop sign, what is it? Maybe 12 feet high? 10 feet high? How can that be on a flat earth? The hills are about 30 miles away, around 3,000 feet high. And yet these shrubs here are blocking my view of them. How is that possible on a flat earth if the mountains are so much higher than these shrubs? That proves the earth is a ball, because the mountains have to be curving away. Can you see those trees down there? They're over here. Kind of in the distance, maybe a couple miles. You can see the hills above them further in the distance, right? Now, I'm going to go up towards those trees. I'm going to get closer to the hills. And when I get closer to those trees are going to look taller than the hills. How does that work on your ball? Just keep watching those trees in relation to the hills. It's all about angles. If I was far enough back where the trees take on the appearance of a smaller angular size, and I could draw an angle or a line from my eyes to the hills easily. But now look, I'm getting closer. And now the trees are beginning to look like they're taller than the hills behind them. In fact, they're blocking out the hills directly behind them. How can that be? Miles Davis is an absolute idiot, and so are all his followers. Those hills are 3,000 feet high. How can they not be seen from here when the trees are only maybe 30 feet tall? I don't know what to do about this. Maybe the earth is a ball. See how silly that is? So ridiculous. Look at, even these short trees are going to start blocking the hills behind them. It's just a matter of the angle of your view, how close you are to an object, because now those trees will block off those hills because I'm close to them. If I'm further away, I can see over them. This is so simple. The problem with all you globbers is you don't know what you're looking at. See, Miles, in your video yesterday, you would say, oh, if I draw a line to the focal point at the top of those trees, I should be able to hit the hills, because the hills are 3,000 feet high. So stupid. Oh, by the way, Tommy, it's the same thing in your video. You just haven't figured it out. Your lighthouse in the video was not above the turbines, just like these trees are not above the hills. You can literally come up with examples like this all day long, just by driving down the road, as long as you got a backdrop of something like hills to compare it to. Oh, you're going to start to see the hills again, because we're getting to the edge of the field. Just by your perspective alone and by your perception, it's obvious those hills are much taller than these trees. Look at those trees down over there. They're further away. They're taller than these trees, but they're not blocking the top of the hill in the distance. In fact, I could see much of the hill. But if I kept driving, if I had road, I would use those as an example again. The closer I get to them, the larger in angular size they appear to be, and they will block more of those hills. In fact, the closer I get to them, they will eventually block the hills. You guys don't understand angles. You think you do, but you don't. You don't understand that topography plays a part in blocking the bottoms of things and even obscuring things completely, like we saw with those trees that I passed up. Now, don't forget, Miles Davis, you said your observation point was 25 to 26 meters elevation, and that the focal point of the lighthouse was approximately 99, if I recall, 99 or 69 meters. So you basically had something much taller than you blocking what's way further behind, just like these trees I just showed you a minute ago. You might as well, let's say you're 6 foot. You might as well build about an 18-foot wall, stand behind it, and wonder why you can't see the mountains in the far background. It's the same thing. That's how idiotic you are and how stupid your followers are. It's almost hilarious. Look at that sign right there. It's well below the tops of the mountains, but as I get closer, oh look! How come the mountains are below it? Isn't that crazy? There's another group of trees down there. You can easily see the tops of the hills. But as I get closer to those trees, they're gonna do the exact same thing. Oh look, they're getting closer to the top. They're getting closer to the top. Oh, they're getting closer. They're like touching the tops. They're over the tops. Look. How can this happen on a flat earth? There's another tree. It's kind of by that barn over there. Oh, it's going to be higher than the hills in just a second. Now, shouldn't it be the opposite way? The further I'm back, the hills should be more around a curve, right? But I'm getting closer, and now the hills are dropping under the trees. But now that barn, they're under the barn. Huh. There's another barn. Look at that one. Oh, it's starting to go over the tops of the mountains. Woohoo! Isn't this crazy? Okay, there's a shop on the right side in the distance. It's obviously well below the tops of those hills. You'll see it on the right side in a minute. It's that shiny one up there coming up on the right side. Over in here. Now, as we get closer to it, it's going to appear taller, and it will go above the mountaintop. It's getting closer. It's almost to the top. Oh, it's obscuring the hills behind it. How does that happen? If the earth is flat and those hills are much taller than that shop. By the way, the shop is my brother-in-law's. He stores old cars in there. He built an old Western saloon in the back corner. It's quite nice. One day, I will use his long, shiny floor to show you how things will disappear bottom first. Just haven't gotten around to it. So anyhow, Miles Davis. In my comments, I said if you go farther back, you will have a line of sight over the lighthouse and easily see the turbines above it. That shouldn't happen by moving further away, because in your model, the ball distance should just make that curve even more exaggerated. You guys really don't understand what you're looking at. You don't have perspective in its proper context. You got to realize how close things are to you, how far they are from you, and how that relates to their angular size, apparent angular size, in relation to the background. Your lighthouse on the island was much higher than you. And it was fairly close. It was less than 5 kilometers, I believe you said. And those hills with the turbines were much further. That's why it looked like it was at the top of those hills and over the turbines. It's just angles. It's that simple. Had nothing to do with the mountains going beyond curvature or over curvature. And like I said, you guys are totally stupid.